Beloved soul, you were never meant to chase the approval of others. You were meant to blossom from within. The moment you bring your attention back to yourself, the universe begins to shift in your favor. It's not about proving them wrong. It's about proving to yourself that you are always enough. When you focus on healing, growing, and nurturing your inner world, your outer world transforms. That is how you shock everyone. Not through noise, but through peace, power, and presence. You are your first responsibility. This truth is not a burden, it is a beautiful awakening. So many of us are taught to care for others before ourselves, to place everyone's needs ahead of our own, to find validation in how much we give, how much we serve, how much we sacrifice. But the truth is, when you abandon yourself to please the world, you begin to lose the very light that makes you whole. It is not selfish to tend to your own needs, it is sacred. You were never meant to pour endlessly from an empty cup. You were never meant to be the hero in everyone else's story while forgetting your own. Your breath, your rest, your joy, your peace, these are not luxuries, they are necessities. Your inner world requires care, patience, and nurturing. When you take the time to love yourself first, you give the best of you, not what's left of you. There is a quiet strength in waking up and asking, what do I need today to feel safe, centered, and alive? This question is not indulgent, it is intelligent, it is intuitive. When you become attuned to your own needs, you begin to make choices that support your growth. You become less reactive and more reflective. You stop reaching for things that drain you and instead reach inward to restore yourself. This is not running away from others, this is returning to your own center. The world may tell you to put everyone else first, but your soul is always asking you to come home to yourself, to honor your energy, to protect your peace, to hold space for your dreams. Because when you are well, everything around you flourishes. When you are rested, your compassion expands. When you are nourished, your creativity flows. When you are whole, you lift others effortlessly. Taking responsibility for yourself means becoming aware of your patterns. It means noticing when you're overgiving, when you're shrinking, when you're saying yes out of guilt. It means slowing down and asking, is this serving my highest good? And if it's not, it's okay to release it. You do not need to carry the weight of every expectation. You do not need to keep proving your worth by overextending your heart. Responsibility is not about control. It is about care, deep, conscious, loving care. It's about learning to hold yourself with kindness when you feel overwhelmed. It's about honoring your feelings instead of pushing them aside. It's about making choices that support your well-being, not sabotage it. Every time you show up for yourself, even in the smallest way, you reclaim your power. You are not here to rescue others at the expense of yourself. You are here to radiate love from a place of fullness. And to do that, you must include yourself in your circle of compassion. You must speak to yourself the way you speak to those you adore, with softness, with encouragement, with belief. When you become your own responsibility, you begin to break cycles. You begin to unlearn the belief that your worth is tied to your productivity or your relationships. You begin to build a foundation of self-trust that no one can take from you. You stop outsourcing your peace. You stop abandoning yourself for temporary approval, and something magical happens. You become free. You become free to make decisions that align with your truth. Free to express your needs without guilt. Free to walk away from environments that dim your spirit. Free to choose yourself, not just once, but over and over again. This is the path of real empowerment, not through force, but through love. Not through perfection, but through presence. You show up for yourself even when it's hard. You forgive yourself for the times you didn't know better. You give yourself permission to rest, to grow, to say no, and to begin again. You become a sanctuary for your own soul. And when you live this way, people notice, not because you're loud about it, but because your energy speaks for you. You become steady. You become radiant. You become someone who doesn't beg for love because you've already given it to yourself. So take a deep breath, come back to your body, come back to your heart, remind yourself that you matter, that your needs are valid, that your voice deserves to be heard, even by you. You are your first responsibility. And when you honor that truth, you give others permission to do the same. Your healing becomes a light that ripples outward. Your joy becomes an offering, your peace becomes your power. Then everything begins to change. Energy speaks louder than words. You can say all the right things, but if your energy is anxious, bitter, or disconnected, people will feel it. Likewise, you may say very little, but if your energy is grounded, warm, and confident, your presence will speak volumes. This is the invisible language we all speak, the language of energy. It doesn't need explanation. It doesn't require translation. It simply resonates. You can't fake energy. You can't perform your way into authentic connection. You can pretend to be okay, but if inside you feel unsettled, others will notice. Maybe not with their minds, but with their hearts. Energy is felt in the pauses, in the tone, in the silence between words. People may not remember what you said, but they'll always remember how you made them feel. That's the power of your vibration. This is why inner work matters. This is why healing your wounds, calming your nervous system, and reconnecting to your truth is the most powerful thing you can do. When your energy is clear, you don't have to prove anything. When your energy is whole, you don't have to chase. When your energy is soft but steady, you become magnetic. Not because you're trying to be, but because alignment is attractive. There's no need to shout to be heard when your spirit speaks with quiet confidence. There's no need to compete when you're at peace with who you are. Your presence will always speak for itself. Whether you walk into a room or simply sit in stillness, your energy announces you. It whispers your boundaries. It reveals your intentions. It tells the truth about what lives inside your heart. This is why protecting your energy is sacred. You must be mindful of the spaces you enter, the people you entertain, and the thoughts you allow to linger. Not everything deserves your reaction. Not everyone deserves your explanation. Sometimes your silence is enough. Sometimes your absence is louder than your words could ever be. When you begin to honor your own frequency, you no longer feel the need to force connections. You understand that not everyone will resonate with you, and that's okay. You're not meant to fit into every space. You're meant to be where your energy is respected, not drained. You're meant to be where your truth is safe, not silenced. You don't need to convince people of your worth. You don't need to justify your boundaries. Your peace, your growth, your joy, these are self-expressions that require no defense. The right people will recognize your energy and feel safe in it. The wrong ones will be confused by it or try to dim it. Let that be your filter. The more you tend to your inner world, the clearer your outer world becomes. When your energy is calm, your decisions become wiser. When your energy is balanced, you stop reacting and start responding. When your energy is rooted in love, not fear, you become a vessel of healing, not chaos. And people will feel that without needing a single word from you. This is why self-care is not just about candles and quiet time. It's about being fiercely intentional with your space, your time, and your truth. It's about aligning your actions with your values. It's about noticing when your energy dips and gently guiding it back to center. It's about tuning out the noise of the world and tuning into the wisdom of your soul. You've likely encountered people who said beautiful things but left you feeling drained. And you've probably met others who said very little but left you feeling seen, understood, and inspired. That is the difference between spoken words and energetic truth. One comes from the surface, the other rises from within. So if you want to create change, don't just focus on what you say, focus on who you're being. Let your healing be the real message. Let your presence be the reminder. Let your stillness be the statement. When you walk in alignment with love, your life becomes your loudest expression. No performance required, no perfection needed, just truth softly rooted in the soil of self-awareness, just honesty flowing from a heart that no longer fears being misunderstood, just peace born from the deep knowing that everything you are is already enough. And as you walk through the world with this energy, you won't need to prove anything. People will feel it. They will feel the calm in your voice, the steadiness in your gaze, the warmth in your smile. They will feel the boundaries you don't need to shout. They will feel the strength that comes from within, not from defense. Energy speaks louder than words. So let your energy be love, let it be truth, let it be peace, let it be the silent echo that leaves a lasting impression wherever you go. The most powerful shift happens in silence, not in the loud moments, not in the dramatic announcements, and not in the eyes of the world, but in the quiet spaces where no one is watching and no applause is given. True transformation is gentle. It unfolds in solitude, in stillness, in the spaces between what was and what's becoming. And it doesn't need to be explained because it is felt deeply and profoundly. It is in the silent hours, when you sit alone with your own thoughts, that you begin to meet your true self. Not the version shaped by expectation or approval, but the one who has always lived underneath the noise. In the silence, you hear what your heart has been trying to say for years. You hear the whispers of your intuition guiding you back home to who you've always been. Silence allows you to breathe without performing, to feel without hiding, to unravel what's not yours and gently return to what is. It is where you learn the difference between reaction and response, between pressure and purpose, between obligation and alignment. And when you make peace with silence, you make peace with yourself. This is why solitude isn't loneliness. It's clarity. It's the sacred pause where healing begins and chaos ends. It's where the patterns that once kept you stuck are finally seen, not judged, just observed. And in that observation, transformation takes root. In that quiet noticing, you begin to shift, not because someone told you to, not because life forced you to, but because your soul decided it was time to release the past, time to unlearn the noise, time to grow in a direction that feels more like freedom and less like survival. And that shift, the one that changes everything, doesn't come with fireworks. It comes with stillness. People may not understand what's happening to you during this quiet transition. They may question your withdrawal, your boundaries, your new softness or your distance. But you don't need to explain your evolution to anyone. Growth does not require validation. Healing does not require an audience. In fact, some of the most beautiful transformations are born in silence. When you start waking up earlier just to sit with yourself, when you begin turning inward instead of outward for answers, When you stop arguing, stop explaining, stop chasing, and just start being. This is not giving up. This is rising. You rise without noise. You rise without needing to be seen. You rise because your inner world matters more than the noise outside of you. You begin to feel safe in your own presence. You begin to understand your own patterns. You begin to gently forgive yourself, not with grand gestures, but with quiet compassion. And this shift touches everything. Your relationships soften. Your reactions slow down. Your choices become clearer. You start saying no, not out of fear, but out of love. You stop needing others to validate your worth because your own voice becomes louder than the doubt. You begin to build a life that feels like peace, not performance. The silence becomes your sanctuary, a place where you're allowed to be raw, real, and unfinished, a place where your healing breathes, a place where you are not required to be anyone except who you are right here, right now. And in that space, something sacred awakens. A self-trust, a deep knowing, a subtle joy. Eventually the world will notice. They'll see the difference. They'll feel the calm in your energy, the strength in your stillness, the grace in your boundaries. They may wonder what changed. They may ask what happened. But you'll know. The shift happened in silence, when you chose yourself over noise, peace over performance, truth over pretending. This is a kind of change that doesn't announce itself. It reveals itself over time, gently, in your actions, in your energy, in the way you carry yourself through chaos with calm, through endings with grace, through uncertainty with trust. This is the quiet power of healing. It doesn't need to speak. It simply radiates. You don't need to be louder, you need to be truer. You don't need to do more, you need to go deeper into yourself, into your heart, into the silence that holds all the answers you've been seeking elsewhere. And when you find that place, you realize the most powerful shift didn't happen outside, it happened within. So give yourself permission to step back, to turn inward, to grow without explaining, to rise without noise. Let the silence be your teacher. Let your healing speak without words. Because the shift you're making now, soft, quiet, invisible to the world, is leading you to a life that finally feels like home. Let go of the need to be understood. It is one of the most liberating and loving things you can ever do for yourself. So much of our suffering comes from trying to explain ourselves, trying to make others see us clearly, trying to fit into someone else's lens of what is right, acceptable, or true. But the truth is, not everyone will understand you. Not everyone is meant to. And that's okay. You were not born to be understood by every person who crosses your path. You were born to live your truth even when it's misunderstood. You were born to follow your heart even when others don't approve. You were born to listen to the wisdom within you even when it doesn't make sense to anyone else. That is courage. That is alignment. That is freedom. Trying to constantly explain yourself is exhausting. It pulls you out of your own energy and places you in a cycle of doubt, defense, and disappointment. It causes you to water yourself down, to overthink, to question your instincts. And for what? Approval that never truly satisfies? Understanding that often comes at the cost of self-betrayal? The truth is, no matter how pure your intentions are, some people will still misunderstand you. No matter how kind you are, some will still find fault. No matter how much you share your heart, some will never see it. And that has nothing to do with your worth. It simply means their perception is limited by their own experiences, expectations, or fears. When you let go of the need to be understood, you begin to return home to yourself. You start validating your own voice instead of waiting for others to echo it. You begin choosing peace over performance. You stop rehearsing conversations in your mind, trying to make others get it. You begin trusting that the people who are aligned with your energy will naturally understand you, not because you explain yourself perfectly, but because they feel you. This shift doesn't make you hard or cold. It makes you free. It makes you rooted. It brings you closer to your center, where your truth lives quietly and confidently. You no longer feel the need to overexpose your heart just to be seen. You understand that your truth is not a debate. It is a knowing. It's okay to be misunderstood. It's okay if someone misreads your silence, your choices, your growth. You don't need to correct every misconception. You don't need to make everyone see the full picture. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is keep walking your path, even when others don't walk with you. Letting go of the need to be understood also means releasing control. It means making peace with the fact that your journey is uniquely yours. You don't have to live in a way that makes sense to others. You only need to live in a way that feels true to your soul. And when you do, you find a deeper form of acceptance, one that isn't dependent on external applause. You start to realize that understanding is a gift, not a requirement. When someone understands you, cherish it, but don't depend on it, because your clarity doesn't require a crowd. Your purpose doesn't need permission. You are allowed to take up space, make choices, and grow, even when it confuses the people around you. And sometimes the people who misunderstand you are simply not meant to walk your path. They may belong to a chapter you've already outgrown. They may not yet be able to meet you at your current vibration. Let them go with love. Let them find their own clarity. And trust that the right souls will recognize you without needing a full explanation. There is power in being at peace with who you are, even when others aren't. There is strength in standing in your truth, even when it's met with silence. There is freedom in letting go of the need to be validated, approved, or explained. You begin to live for your inner alignment, not outer agreement. You start doing things that feel right in your spirit, not just in your mind. You stop shrinking, stop over-explaining, stop twisting yourself into a version others can accept. You begin expanding into your true form. So take a breath. Give yourself permission to be misunderstood. Give yourself space to honor your path. Trust that your soul knows what it's doing. Trust that you don't need to be defined, explained, or approved to be real, worthy, or whole. You are allowed to be complex. You are allowed to evolve. You are allowed to walk away quietly. You are allowed to speak your truth without shouting. You are allowed to hold your heart with tenderness, even when others don't see it. Let go of the need to be understood and step into the peaceful power of simply being yourself. Inner focus attracts outer blessings. It is not the striving, the chasing, or the proving that creates abundance. It is the alignment within. When you shift your attention from the external noise to your internal truth, everything begins to change. Not because the world suddenly becomes different, but because you become different. You become centered, clear, and connected to something deeper than circumstances. When you focus inward, you begin to notice the areas of your life that have been calling for attention, not judgment, but gentle awareness. You realize that peace was never out there waiting for you to catch it. It was always within, waiting to be uncovered. The more you nurture that peace, the more your life aligns with it. Your energy begins to match your desires. Your intentions become rooted in love. instead of lack. And in that space of clarity, blessings begin to flow. This is the quiet miracle of inner work. While the world chases validation and applause, you choose presence. While others seek answers in the noise, you discover them in the stillness. You start realizing that your emotions are guides, your thoughts are choices, and your beliefs shape your entire reality. So you begin the sacred task of clearing out what no longer serves you. Old stories, limiting patterns, and inherited fears. You don't need to have it all figured out. You don't need to be perfect. You simply need to return to yourself, moment by moment, with honesty and compassion. Because the more you listen to your inner world, the more you understand what you truly need. You stop chasing goals that were never yours to begin with. You stop comparing your journey to others. You stop measuring your worth through the eyes of those who never knew your soul. Instead, you begin creating from a place of authenticity. You begin dreaming from a place of wholeness. You begin showing up for life not as a version of what you think you should be, but as the person you already are beneath all the conditioning. And when you show up that way, the world responds. Doors begin to open not because you forced them, but because your energy is now a match for what you've been asking for. Relationships improve, not because you demanded change, but because you became someone who naturally attracts mutual respect. Opportunities come your way, not because you begged for them, but because you became aligned with the vibration of abundance. It's not magic, it's alignment. The universe responds to your internal frequency, not your external efforts alone. When your heart is open, your thoughts are loving, and your actions are intentional, life begins to mirror that energy back to you. That is how inner focus creates outer blessings. You begin to attract peace because you carry peace. You begin to attract love because you radiate love. You begin to attract clarity because you've made space for it inside. Everything you desire externally must first find a home within you. This path is not always easy. It requires patience, presence, and commitment. It means facing discomfort instead of avoiding it. It means being honest about your wounds, your triggers, your shadows. But this work is not punishment. It is liberation. It frees you from the constant need for approval. It dissolves the need to prove your worth. It reconnects you to the power you've had all along. You begin to live intentionally. You choose peace over drama. You choose clarity over confusion. You choose self-respect over people-pleasing. And as your inner world becomes more aligned, your outer world naturally shifts to support it. Not because you controlled it, but because you became available for what's meant for you. You start to understand that the journey is not about collecting more, it's about becoming more. More aware, more present, more grounded, more joyful. And from that space, life meets you with blessings that match your inner richness. So if life feels stuck, chaotic, or unclear, don't rush to change the outside. Instead, go inward. Ask yourself, where am I out of alignment? What belief am I holding that no longer serves me? Where can I be more loving, more true, more patient with myself? Your healing, your peace, your wholeness, that's where the real shift begins. And when you become intentional with your inner world, the outer world begins to rearrange itself in beautiful, unexpected ways. Trust this truth. You don't have to chase what is already yours by divine design. You simply need to become the version of you who is ready to receive it. Focus inward, align your energy, and watch as life begins to bless you in ways far greater than you imagined, not because you earned it, but because you allowed it. The real shock is in your peace, not in your words, not in your reaction, not in how loud you respond to being hurt, but in how silently you choose yourself instead. Peace is not weakness, it is power refined. It is the quiet confidence that does not need to explain, defend, or retaliate. It is the kind of strength that turns heads not because it demands attention, but because it radiates something rare, wholeness. You shock the world not by shouting back, but by walking away with grace. Not by proving your point, but by knowing your worth so deeply that you don't need to. Peace is what you find when you stop fighting battles that were never yours to carry. It's what you discover when you stop giving energy to things that drain you. Peace is the decision to protect your spirit more than your ego. You do not need to react to every slight, every misunderstanding, or every person who tries to dim your light. Your peace is your boundary. It's your shield. It speaks for you louder than anger ever could. There is nothing louder than someone who simply refuses to engage in chaos. That's the shock. To expect a war and be met with stillness. When you start choosing peace over reaction, everything changes. You stop feeling the need to chase validation or closure. You stop trying to convince others of your truth. You no longer lose sleep trying to manage how others perceive you, because you know that truth doesn't need defending. It simply is. You carry it in your presence, and your presence becomes your message. Peace doesn't mean everything around you is perfect. It means you are no longer at war with yourself. It means you've chosen to rise above what used to trigger you. It means you've decided that your energy is far too precious to waste on things that don't align with your growth. That is real power. You shock people when you stop engaging in their games, when you don't return their silence with desperation, when you don't respond to their bitterness with anger, when you refuse to match their chaos with your own. That is how you teach others that your energy is sacred. That is how you shift from being reactive to being intentional. Peace is a decision. Every day you are given the opportunity to choose it. To choose to pause instead of panic. To breathe instead of break. To respond instead of react. This doesn't mean you become passive. It means you become powerful in a different way. A way that doesn't need to be loud to be strong. A way that doesn't need revenge to feel complete. Your peace is your proof. It shows that you've grown, that you've healed, that you no longer live in the same emotional space you used to. People who once knew how to push your buttons will be surprised when those buttons no longer work. And you won't need to explain how you got there. Your stillness will say it all. That's the real shock. To be so deeply rooted in self-love and self-trust that you no longer flinch when someone walks away. To be so grounded in your worth that you don't chase anything that compromises your peace. To be so aligned with your higher self that you don't need to react. You simply move forward, gently and firmly. When you become peaceful within, your entire life begins to reflect that state. You find yourself drawn to different conversations, different people, different dreams. You outgrow environments that thrive on drama. You outgrow habits that once felt comforting but now feel heavy. Peace rewires you. It becomes your new baseline, your new way of being. And yes, it may confuse people, especially those who once had access to the version of you that reacted, explained, and overextended. But you owe no one your chaos. You owe yourself your calm. Let your evolution surprise them. Let your grace speak where your anger once did. Let your peace do what your words never could. I would say there's something beautiful that happens when you stop trying to win and start choosing peace. You no longer feel the need to fight for your place in anyone's life. You no longer wait for the apology that may never come. You no longer let temporary people disturb your permanent joy. That's the shift. That's the miracle. So don't worry about being understood. Don't worry about being loud. Don't worry about being seen by everyone. Just be at peace with who you are. Let that peace fill the room before you say a word. Let it speak louder than your past ever could. And let it be the softest, strongest shock of all. Because in a world that thrives on noise, drama, and chaos, your peace will be the loudest thing they never expected.